We appreciate our witnesses visiting with us down in the classified SCIF. And now we meet today to receive testimony in open session on the posture of United States Special Operations Command, United States Cyber Command. We're joined by Admiral Mitch Bradley, Commander of the United States Special Operations Command, General Joshua Rudd, Commander of the United States Cyber Command and Director of the National Security Agency, Mr. Derek Anderson, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict, and Ms. Katie Sutton, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy. And all members are reminded to silence their devices, including the chair. Recent operations, including Absolute Resolve, Midnight Hammer, and Epic Fury, represent a watershed moment for American military power. Each operation wove cyber effects into the fabric of joint force operations at the beginning of planning. Consequently, our cyber operators were able to illustrate the potential of these capabilities as a force multiplier unlike any other. We must ensure that the lessons learned from recent operations are fully digested and integrated into our doctrine and planning. However, we cannot allow these successes to lull us into complacency. Cyber threats are immediate, persistent, and they are escalating. Every day, our adversaries target America's critical infrastructure and government networks. They're advancing their capabilities to outpace and outcompete our forces in cyberspace, and we must not allow that. To keep up with these threats, we must redouble our efforts to modernize and strengthen American cyber forces. Doing so requires us to make fundamental updates to the way military services generate, organize, and sustain cyber forces. This effort is as ambitious as it is necessary. The Pentagon has launched a department-wide initiative, CyberCom 2.0, to increase skill and readiness of our cyber forces. This initiative is simple. Just like any other military service, we will need a well-trained pipeline of cyber operators supported by a whole range of acquisition professionals. And we do not have that today. Perhaps have testimony about how far along we are. Our cyber operators are working overtime, and we're not ready to generate new forces to replace them. I'm troubled that this effort is not moving fast enough. Current operations will always be priority number one, but we must ensure this pace is sustainable. Our cyber operators are not the only highly specialized forces in demand. America's special operations forces are more important now than ever before. No longer confined to their traditional role as a force of last resort, special operations forces often serve as a first choice across the full spectrum of military action. Special operations forces conduct direct action against high-value targets, as we witnessed during the raid to apprehend Nicolas Maduro from his heavily fortified compound outside Caracas. They train and advise partner forces, building capacity and strengthening alliances across Latin America, Europe, and the First Island chains. They gather intelligence against our adversaries in hostile environments. They respond to crises worldwide at a moment's notice, and they operate in the gray zone between peace and war, the context in which much of today's strategic competition unfolds. However, the funding provided to Special Operations Command has not kept pace with the seemingly insatiable demand for its capabilities. The command faces a troubling gap between its mission requirements and available resources, and I do think there's consensus on both sides of the dais and both sides of the aisle to correct that as soon as we can. Last year, General Brian Fenton, then Commander of Special Operations Command, stated before this committee, and I'm going to quote General Fenton, "We continue to grapple with years of flat budgets, a 14% decrease in buying power, significant personnel reductions, and the requirement to evolve our technology and authorities. All this forces trade-offs, tough choices that challenge current missions and put modernization at risk. End of quote from General Fenton. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, the $1.6 billion increase in last year's reconciliation funding was not fully applied to the purpose for which Congress intended it. Perhaps we could discuss that today. This morning, I looked to Admiral Bradley and Secretary Anderson to tell us, to tell this committee what they need. I hope they will tell us how to equip their force to combat the advanced militaries of China and Russia, to remain fully engaged in the fight against violent Islamic terrorism, and to respond at a moment's notice as our nation's premier crisis response force. And with that, I recognize my friend and colleague, the Ranking Member Reed, for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Admiral Bradley and General Rudd, Mr. Anderson, and Ms. Sutton. Thank you very much. And please convey our thanks, our deep thanks to the men and women under your commands. Tomorrow marks 2 months since President Trump launched the war with Iran. Both Special Operations Command and Cyber Command are deeply engaged in this conflict. Our special operatives and cyber forces have played a major role in enabling combat operations, conducting information warfare, and providing intelligence support, including the remarkable mission to rescue the crew of the F-15 aircraft shot down in Iran early this month. This hearing is a reminder that modern warfare requires the full integration of every element of American military power. Today, I would like our witnesses to provide updates on how their personnel are engaged in the war with Iran and what lessons should be drawn for future conflicts. Admiral Bradley, our Special Operations Forces are unparalleled, but they are not without limits. I am concerned the administration has been deploying your forces at an unsustainable pace and for missions that could be questioned. Over the past year, SOCOM has led and executed the attack on Venezuela to capture Nicolas Maduro, the boat strike campaign in the Caribbean and Pacific, and various operations throughout the Middle East and Africa. I have serious concerns about Operation Southern Sphere in particular. Our service members have been ordered to strike and kill hundreds of suspected criminals in the open ocean over the past 8 months, placing them in legally and ethically perilous circumstances. I would ask for an update on SOCOM's role in Southern Sphere and its missions in the region moving forward. Additionally, Admiral Bradley, in your prepared statement, you rightly discuss how warfare is increasingly defined by, in your words, competition below the threshold of armed conflict. In essence, a gray zone environment. That is precisely where our Special Operations Forces should be most effective, and I would ask for your plans to prepare our special forces for such environments and what impact today's high operations tempo could have on future readiness. Similarly, Mr. Anderson, I would appreciate an update on the role of our special operations in advising U.S. partners in Europe and the Indo-Pacific, and what steps you are taking to help equip and modernize our forces. I would also ask for an update on your efforts to strengthen the abilities of your office to fulfill its service secretary-like responsibilities for the oversight of the organization and readiness of our Special Operations Forces. General Rudd, Ms. Sutton, I understand you are conducting a Cyber 2.0 force structure review. I welcome such a review. The current cyber mission force design is more than a decade old, and chronic readiness problems persist. Our most skilled cyber operators are highly sought after in the private sector, and the military cannot easily match the financial incentives that they're presented with. As such, a professional attrition in cybercom remains high. I would appreciate an update on the force design changes you are considering and how such changes could affect the joint cyber warfare fighting architecture. Additionally, this committee has been briefed in closed session about the cyber activities used during recent operations like Midnight Hammer and Absolute Resolve. I would like to understand in open session how you are integrating cyber effects into combat missions and operational planning, and where shortfalls remain that can be addressed through legislation. Finally, Ms. Sutton, your office is new, and its mandate is very consequential, providing civilian oversight and advocacy for Cybercom. I would like to hear how you are structuring your office, whether you are adequately resourced, and how you are working across the department to improve acquisition functions and civilian hiring authorities for the command. Thank you again, all of you. The missions of SOCOM and Cybercom are indispensable to our national security, and I look forward to your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Secretary Anderson, I think we'll start with you on opening statements, if you don't mind. And I know you gave full statement in the classified section, but feel free to go ahead and tell us what you have in mind.
Thank you, Senator, and appreciate that. Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and other distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify on the global posture of our nation's Special Operations Forces. I'm honored to testify alongside Assistant Secretary Katie Sutton, Admiral Mitch Bradley, and General Joshua Rudd. The SOLIC team, together with their U.S. SOCOM counterparts, bring invaluable expertise, leadership, and insight as we advocate on behalf of the SOF enterprise, our service members, and their families. People are the foundation of SOF and of the Joint Force. They are our competitive advantage against our adversaries. We are thankful for those who have volunteered to serve, those currently in harm's way, and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, including the 13 U.S. service members we've lost during ongoing operations. We honor their lives and legacy and will never forget the sacrifices in defense of our country. Today's security environment is defined by simultaneity, convergence, and speed. State adversaries, terrorist organizations, and transnational criminal networks are increasingly aligned, technologically enabled, and active across domains and regions. To answer these challenges, the National Defense Strategy marks a fundamental shift, directing the Department of War to implement a flexible, realistic approach to protect America's interests. Purpose-built for this era, SOF provides capability and optionality. Comprising only 3% of the Joint Force and less than 2% of the department's budget, roughly equivalent to the procurement cost of a single aircraft carrier, SOF delivers outsized strategic value. SOF provides senior leaders with scalable, tailorable, and asymmetric options across the full spectrum of competition and conflict, leveraging persistent global presence, generational relationships, and unique authorities. The quiet professionals within SOF shape the operating environment, strengthen partners, and impose costs on our adversaries. While you may not read about it in the headlines, every major operation has a SOF component to it. Operations like Southern Spear, Rough Rider, Midnight Hammer, Absolute Resolve, and Epic Fury have demonstrated our nation's prowess and commitment to confront our adversaries wherever they may be. From the Western Hemisphere across the Indo-Pacific to the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and beyond, SOF has been decisive in defending the homeland, deterring China, and enabling our partners and allies. Should deterrence fail, SOF's postured with the Joint Force to prevail in high-end conflict. In accordance with the law and congressional guidance, of which we are immensely grateful, the department has taken decisive and concrete steps to institutionalize SOLIC's oversight and advocacy role and strengthen the governments of the SOF enterprise. Over the last year and a half, we have transformed the Secretariat for Special Operations to provide direct civilian oversight across organize, train, and equip responsibilities, not to duplicate or disrupt the operational execution role of U.S. SOCOM, but to support, sustain, and strengthen it. This transformation moves us beyond the old advisory construct to a true exercise of authority, direction, and control through an analytical, disciplined, data-driven, and strategically sound approach. While the maturation of these initiatives is ongoing, these foundational changes fulfill congressional intent and provide the oversight mechanisms needed to shape force structure, guide budgetary and planning processes, and forge the future of SOF. The optionality that SOF delivers requires resourcing and investments. To maintain our competitive edge, SOF needs sustained partnership, predictable resourcing, and continued modernization. We greatly appreciate the support from this committee, and I commit to continued collaboration with Congress and to make full use of my position in the department and alongside the services to ensure SOF remains resourced, ready, relevant, and accountable, and to ensure that they can meet today's missions while transforming for tomorrow's challenges. I'm honored to lead the SOF enterprise. I invite you to visit our special operators and their families across the globe to see firsthand in the great work they do and the challenges they face. Our service members and their families represent the finest that America has to offer and are something we as a nation should be proud of. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, let's go Admiral Bradley, and then we'll do Secretary Sutton and General Rudd. Admiral, you're recognized.
Chairman, thank you. Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for the opportunity to represent the men and women of the United States Special Operations Command. I am honored to testify alongside Honorable Derek Anderson, RASW SOLIC. In SOCOM, we rely upon the empowered SOCOM SOLIC team for oversight, support, and advocacy to succeed in all of our global missions. Furthermore, privileged to testify alongside our partners from Cybercom, General Josh Rudd and ASW Honorable Katie Sutton. The deep integration between our commands ensures, as you have said, Chairman, that we can project power and protect the homeland across all domains. Distinguished members of this committee, the Honorable Anderson has laid out the strategic challenge, and I'd like to emphasize what this means for your warfighters inside SOCOM. The bottom line is we do not have the luxury of focusing on only a single goal or mission. While we defend the homeland as our top priority, we must also orient our force on the long-term pacing challenge of China. We simultaneously deter the acute threat of conventional aggression from Russia and Iran and remain postured to dismantle the networks of their proxies, while we guard against the reckless provocations of isolated rogue states. And through it all, the persistent threat of ideologically driven and narco-terrorism continues to demand our and our integrated interagencies' constant vigilance. This is the reality of simultaneity. To meet this reality, we carry on the legacy of the Chindits, the Marine Raiders, the underwater demolition teams, and the Jetbergs of World War II. Small teams who flew and parachuted behind enemy lines or swam through murky waters, not to win the war by themselves, but to empower our partners to win it as part of a greater alliance. That is the essence of how we, as just 3% of the joint force and less 2% of the department's budget, provide an indispensable asymmetric advantage. We are a force ready to multiply the effects of our allies, partners, and our joint force teammates. Our joint force teammates recognize this. They recognize that our SOF are more in demand today than we ever have been. Your near $2 billion uplift to our budget last year in 26 was an important down payment. But after 5 years of flat budgets, only with increased investment can we continue to meet the demands of the competition crisis and modernization for future conflict. You see, our purpose is our mission. This means that we are laser focused on maintaining the readiness required to defend the homeland, to deter aggression from our pacing challenge, and to enable true burden sharing by empowering the growing capacity of our allies and partners. But that mission is not accomplished by technology alone. It is executed by the most decisive advantage we have, our people, empowered by a culture of meritocracy and supported by critical programs that you have helped to manifest, like the preservation of the force and family. The health of your SOF formation is not just strong, it's getting stronger every day. And to ensure these exceptional men and women can succeed in the complex environments of tomorrow, increasingly encroaching upon today, we are making transformation our imperative. We must adapt faster than our adversaries. We must sustain and improve our ability to project force through the most contested environments. We must evolve to leverage the ubiquitous information environment, and we must make advantageous use of abundant, attritable autonomy as we support the joint force. We are evolving our force design, accelerating capability development, and strengthening our partnerships with the services and allies to stay ahead of emerging threats. Our partnership with Cybercom is a hallmark of this evolution, synchronizing virtual and physical domain maneuver across the spectrum for mission success. As the department's lead for experimentation in autonomy, we are not just adapting, we are driving change. We are working with the services to incorporate next-generation capabilities, systems that are precise, autonomous, affordable, and always consistent with the law of war. Our goal? To deliver these tools with the element of surprise from unwarned access and placement at scale, ensuring our forces maintain the decisive advantage against any adversary. However, our ability to accomplish this is not guaranteed. It requires accelerated modernization and your continued partnership. Predictable resourcing for our program's modernization is a strategic necessity. SOF was purpose-built for this era of competition, and with your continued support, we will meet today's missions while transforming to ensure we are ready for the challenges of tomorrow. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Admiral. Secretary Sutton, you are recognized.
Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. I'm honored to be here with General Rudd, whose immense experience, especially in the Indo-Pacific region, will prove invaluable as we posture to implement the priorities of the National Defense Strategy. I congratulate Lieutenant General Hartman and his wife, Catherine, on his retirement and thank him for his service and visionary leadership that has built the cyber enterprise over the years, setting the stage for our future success. It is a privilege to also testify alongside our Special Operations partners, Assistant Secretary of War Derek Anderson and Admiral Mitch Bradley. This joint appearance underscores a critical reality. The synergy between our communities creates an asymmetric advantage, presenting our adversaries with compounding dilemmas in both physical and virtual worlds. In my role, I'm responsible for overseeing the department's cyber operations policies, integrating cyber activities, and exercising authority, direction, and control over U.S. Cyber Command. I'd like to start by describing two key dynamics of the strategic cyber environment. The character of cyber warfare is changing rapidly, shaped by the growing threat posed by our adversaries and accelerated by the ever-growing power of technology. The first major change we are seeing is that our adversaries have moved beyond conducting espionage and theft and are preparing for conflict by pre-positioning disruptive capabilities inside our nation's critical infrastructure. This strategic shift from exploitation to effects aims to disrupt military deployments and sow chaos in crisis or conflict. Cyber threats like Volt Typhoon are not just a nuisance, they represent a significant and persistent threat to our national security. Second, artificial intelligence is a powerful force multiplier, increasing the speed, scale, and sophistication of these threats. AI accelerates the entire attack lifecycle, creating a new dynamic where the pace of attacks challenges our ability to react, and the scale overwhelms our ability to defend. Rapid innovation has lowered the barrier for entry for advanced cyber actors, blurring the line between nation-states and other malicious actors. Our adversaries are operationalizing AI to outcompete us, and we must move urgently to put these same tools in the hands of our warfighters. Given these realities, a purely defensive posture is no longer sufficient. To implement the 2026 National Defense Strategy's vision of achieving peace through strength, we must act decisively to transform the cyber enterprise, guided by three core priorities. First, we must integrate cyber across all domains. Cyber is the connective tissue of modern warfare, playing a critical role in joint operations alongside our special operations partners. We will continue to integrate cyber capabilities across every warfighting domain to develop a full range of options to deter conflict and ensure the joint force has every advantage. Second, we must gain strategic advantage below the level of armed conflict. A resilient defense must be paired with proactive, relentless disruption. By empowering our world-class cyber operators to execute full-spectrum cyber operations, we will systematically erode our adversaries' cyber capabilities, dismantle their infrastructure, and impose consequences. Third, our force must organize to dominate. Our strategies are only as effective as the force that executes them. Through the Cyber Command 2.0 initiative, we are undertaking the most comprehensive transformation of our cyber force since its inception to elevate our operational readiness, scale technological advantage, and propel our force to meet the modern demands of conflict. To achieve these priorities, we are leveraging the engine of American industry, harnessing the speed and innovation of the private sector to protect the cyber domain that powers our national security, our economic prosperity, and the American way of life. My office is leading the development of a Department of War cyber strategy to implement this pivot, which I look forward to sharing with the committee when complete. Let there be no doubt, the Department of War's commitment to the defense of this nation is absolute. We have a solemn duty to ensure our joint force is equipped to dominate within the highly contested cyber domain. The support of this committee is fundamental to this mission's success. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. General Rudd.
Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today alongside my distinguished colleagues from the Department and U.S. Special Operations Command. With me today is Command Chief Master Sergeant Kenneth Bruce, the U.S. Cyber Command and National Security Agency Senior Enlisted Leader. We are honored to represent the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen, as well as the civilians who defend our networks and deliver effects that matter every day. I want to thank this committee for your continued support for our critical mission at U.S. Cyber Command. I also want to recognize and thank Lieutenant General Joe Hartman and his wife, Catherine, for their many years of service to this nation and their incredible contribution to Cyber Command and the National Security Agency. The people of U.S. Cyber Command are paramount to our success. Their professionalism and dedication enable everything we accomplish. Our workforce represents the finest talent in cyber operations, a broad team of military service members and civilian professionals delivering unparalleled expertise to one of the nation's most critical missions. Cybercom's mission is threefold: defend the homeland, defend the Department of War's information networks, and support the joint force. In executing these missions, we maintain a formidable partnership with the National Security Agency. NSA's roles, responsibilities, and capabilities complement Cybercom's, creating a unity of effort that strengthens our common defense. Since taking command, I've emphasized 4 operating principles: speed, scale, innovation, and integration. I'm proud to report that Cybercom has been executing under these principles since before my arrival, which has made for a smooth transition and allowed me to hit the ground running. Throughout 2025 and into 2026, we've quickly adapted to the dynamic and complex cyber domain, demonstrating our value at scale. In 2025, we executed more than 8,000 cyber missions, an increase of 25% compared to 2024. This year, we expect even more activity, and with your support, I'm certain our talented force is up to the task. Cybercom gains experience and insights from real-world operations every day, and that experience guides our operational support to the warfighter. Our innovative activity contributes to mission outcomes, to force-building initiatives like Cybercom 2.0, and to the employment of emerging technologies. The cyber domain cuts across all warfighting domains, and integrating cyber into the joint force operations enhances combatant command effectiveness across the board. When called upon, Cybercom employs full-spectrum cyber operations with and on behalf of the other combatant commands to deter and, if necessary, defeat our adversaries. Our participation in Operation Absolute Resolve and Operation Epic Fury are prime examples of this integration in action, cyber and kinetic operations working seamlessly to achieve joint objectives. We're also executing the service-like authorities granted to us by Congress. Cybercom 2.0 is moving at pace and achieving new milestones each month. Through Cybercom 2.0, we will deliver the capability and capacity to identify and hire a talented workforce, provide them with optimal training, and incentivize them to stay in the cyber force. Additionally, it will enhance our ability to work more closely with industry and academia to develop, acquire, and operationalize cutting-edge capabilities. Cyber Command will continue to work with the cyber policy team and the services to ensure Cybercom 2.0 is implemented effectively. Thank you for the privilege of appearing before you today. I look forward to working with you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Secretary Sutton and General Rudd, let me begin with the two of you. I read a pretty disturbing quote from General Brian Fenton last year about years of flat budgets, 14% decrease in buying power, and significant personnel reductions. How is Cybercom 2.0 going to address these? And is the work, is our pace at this point happening fast enough? Secretary Sutton.
Senator, thanks for the opportunity to talk about this really critical initiative. One of the concepts of Cyber Command 2.0 is really looking at how we build mastery into our force before we continue to just grow the force. We have built out our cyber mission force and have largely been able to get them to a basic trained and qualified level. What we really need to look at and what the aim of Cyber Command 2.0 is how do we take that basic and trained force and build in domain mastery and specialized skills to be able to get after some of these problems that we face and to have them be a more effective and more lethal force. To do that, the Cyber Command 2.0 implementation plan looks across the entire talent management pipeline to really address this not as an incremental one-by-one step, but to relook at the entire way that we talent manage this force to really build that unique technical skill set in the way that we've done other models in the department, like the medical community, the soft community, the nuclear community. And so we are undertaking that implementation plan very rapidly, looking at how we can do quick wins and pilots off the bat, and then take lessons learned from those and implement more of the long-term policies. We can always move faster, and we continue to move faster, and look forward to continuing to brief you on our progress as we move forward.
Well, General Rudd, I'll let you follow up there, but could you identify your most, in connection with Cybercom 2.0, your most important milestone to achieve at the earliest possible moment?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to follow up on this. The Cybercom 2.0 approach is built on 7 attributes. First and foremost, it's the people. We've got to identify, recruit, and assess and bring in the right people and get them at that baseline level of certification that enables them to do the mission as soon as they get to the force. The next attribute that's really guiding and driving us is incentivization. So both monetarily for the skill set, great competition with the private sector, as you would imagine, for this type of skill set, and making sure that we harness every authority and every cent that we have to incentivize the workforce. Next critical piece of this is training. We've got to have the right training pipeline and the right resources centered around training to go, again, from what the services provide, which is that baseline operational capability, and then bringing it to what we desire for every member is the mastery. We've then got to make sure that we can retain this force. This is where we look at models like Special Operations Command, where across the service components, there's a career path where we can retain the best and the highly trained ones that have, again, ideally gained mastery or working towards mastery. We can repeatedly keep them in a rotation and an assignment here at Cyber Command. And also, much like special operations, we're developing and executing specialized mission sets. That requires specialized training, and again, the ability to incentivize and retain that talent. And then finally, we're looking at, it's not just the cyber operator, but it's also the enablers. It's the headquarters element and the support pieces that come with that. That's part of the force presentation model from the services, and that's what we're getting after. Chairman, the most, I think one of the biggest challenges is really just figuring out how do we attract the right people and incentivize them to want to have a career in cyber force.
And just brief, you can't do this on the cheap, can you, General?
Chairman, we certainly can't.
Thank you very much. Senator Reed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Bradley and Mr. Anderson, you have some of the same issues, and you've been working at it before as Secretary Sutton and General Rudd, of creating a service secretary-like position. And since you've been both confirmed, what have you done to sort of accomplish that mission of getting you into the service secretary-like mode, and maybe what advice you have for our Cybercom friends?
Senator, first and foremost, Honorable Sutton and I speak regularly about this topic. I can assure you of that. But I want to thank the committee specifically on the 907 authorities that you gave us in the NDAA that allowed us to be a service-like entity. Since taking the seat, we've had a few initiatives, but just to highlight a few, Senator, we've been investing more in our personnel, having that advocacy for the budget, specifically being in the room with our service secretaries to make sure we're doing things in an efficient manner and it's the best dollar going for the taxpayer. Administratively, Admiral Bradley and I have done a sprint, as you might call it, where we have taken our staffs to look at where there might be efficiencies made so we don't have duplicate efforts, both from the SOLIC enterprise as well as from the SOCOM enterprise. Ideally, we come out with the General Order 1, similar to what the Army and other services do, where it lays out the roles and the responsibilities for us as a service like in SOLIC and then obviously SOCOM and Admiral Bradley. So it's been a great initiative that we've been pushing forward. And it's quite honestly made our staffs talk and be more open in dialogue in how we do things. So I'd be remiss not to mention I think one of how we've organized ourselves specifically in SOLIC to mirror something like what the services have, where we have a capabilities and development, we have an M&RA, and we have a special operations analytical arm as well. So it's a lot of work, but we're moving headstrong forward with it.
Admiral?
Yes, Ranking Member. First, I'd start foundationally. We inside the uniform aspects of SOCOM recognize the constitutional foundation of civilian control of the uniformed service. It's a critical facet of our constitutional democracy, and we are fully supportive of manifesting it inside our formations as well. Very pragmatically as well, as SOCOM recognizes that the next challenges we face will be solved through a tighter integration with our service teammates. We have to also have that service connection at the secretariat level. And so inside the Pentagon, it's very important for a robust, empowered SOLIC to be able to be in the same meetings and to have the same interactions to complement what we are doing on the uniform side. And the sprint and the interactions that our staff are having to both find places where horizontal integration is appropriate, that is teaming to divide labor and be better, but also appropriately where vertically oversight functions need to exist. Both of those are critical aspects that are coming out of this sprint.
Thank you very much. General Rudd, we've talked a lot about cybercom. Can you tell us what you believe your 3 top challenges are at NSA?
And sorry, Ranking Member, at NSA?
Yes, I'm sorry. That's my Rhode Island accent. Forgive me.
All right. No, thanks, Ranking Member. It kind of goes back to the operating principles against which I conveyed both to the committee in my opening statement, but also to the force is we have to move at the pace of the strategic environment in which driven really in large part by the pace of technology. So the ability to be able to harness technology ahead of an adversary to be at the foremost front and retain and maintain that advantage is really what's critical. The next piece is the ability to scale. We've got to take our efforts, again, to move fast, figure out where does it apply, not only across other parts of NSA, but across cybercom, but then, of course, across the entirety of the joint force. And then driven by innovation, moving creatively to solve the hardest problems. We may not always have the scale and mass that we would desire, but we know that we can creatively outthink anybody. And then finally, it's integration. We want to make sure that we are nested with, again, not only across the 2 commands to be complementary, that delivers that speed, but then in support of the joint force, but also in support of interagency where required.
Well, I have 14 seconds left, so I can just salute Secretary Sutton. I think you're going to do an excellent job. And one of the issues, the question I was going to ask, we'll send you a written question.
Time's up.
The center, thank you. The center of gravity for your AI efforts in the cybercom realm, and also I think in special ops. I think that's the question we'll send in writing, but it's important. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Bradley, how are you working and assessing SOCOM if it's appropriately postured for the Indo-Pacific?
Senator, thank you. First, we look at it across the spectrum of conflict. Competition, crisis, and should crisis cascade into conflict, how are we positioned to be able to support the combatant commander, my good friend Admiral Sam Paparo? How are we prepared to integrate with the services and the service components there in the Indo-PACOM AOR? And at a competition level, how are we able to provide value to our allies and partners to strengthen the resilience of our alliances there? And we believe that that is foremost and most important in any strategy of deterrence, is to have that stronger alliance. So
Do you have direct input when you're talking about being able to integrate with services? Do you have input on the training and equipping them for the Indo-Pacific?
certainly on our soft forces, I do. I have direct responsibility, statutory responsibility to ensure that our soft members are trained and adequate to the missions that they'll be presented with.
To integrate with services?
Well, to do our missions, and part of our mission is to integrate with the service, so yes.
Okay, thank you. We've seen our adversaries increasingly coordinate, especially on malign activity. So how is SOCOM working to strengthen relationships with our allies and our partners, which you talked about earlier, but both in terms of building up, first of all, our capabilities with them, but also their own capabilities, and when you work on those combined training exercises?
Senator, of course, the first level in a relationship is trust, the most basic essence, and that trust comes from credibility. Our relationships over generations help us to give that credibility, bring that credibility and that trust. I might pick just one as an example, the country of the Philippines, where for 100 years, over 100 years now, we've had an institutional relationship as a nation. But just since 2016 and our partnership on island to help the Philippine Armed Forces clear Marawi, one of their principal cities, of the threat from ISIS, has given us great ability to stretch across turbulent political and diplomatic times to today, where we are able to use that credibility, help them see and share information with them through some new relationship dynamics to understand the threats to their sovereign territory. And so that sharing of information is a critical aspect to allow them to take action for their own problems in the information and the competition space.
I'm sure you've had a number of opportunities there in the Indo-Pacific to work on having that greater collaboration with our partner forces. I was interested in your view on the exercises that took place with Cold Response 26, looking at Norway and Finland, an entirely different environment, I'd say.
Yes, ma'am. I'll speak more generally, and I don't want to get ahead of my good friend General Grinkovich there, who of course oversees those. But from a soft perspective, our partnership with our Scandinavian and European and NATO allies has always been critical. Of course, for the last 25 years, a lot of focus for us in the Middle East. Not as many snow-capped mountains to work in as in the high north. And so as we re-enter into that area, working with our Scandinavian partners has brought an awful lot of reprisal of old skills back. And so we are deepening those, and I think that partnership, not just in on the land, but in the maritime domain, is a critical component to what we will offer to NATO for future deterrence.
Good to hear. Ms. Sutton, how will Cybercom 2.0 enable the department to better adapt to the evolving technological landscape when we look at AI? That's kind of what the question is that Senator Reid, I think, was going to send you.
So as technology continues to move at a tremendous speed, one of the gaps we're seeing in the force is the ability to get our force, after they've made it through the service basic training, to have training available at the speed of need to address some of these technologies. So, for example, someone might have made it through their basic training. How do we provide training for them on cloud, AI, on SCADA systems, other specialized things we're going to need? One of the enablers of Cyber Command 2.0 is creation of an advanced cyber training and education center, which is not going to be a brick and mortar institution that builds courses sort of the traditional way, but is looking at how we leverage industry and academia to have training available for our active force to be able to get at closing those skill gaps as technology continues to move quickly. Let's leverage the training that's available in industry that's moving at that speed as well.
Thank you. I will have a question for General Rudd for the record when we look at CyberCon 2.0 and specifically for the Indo-Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Senator Wicker. Thank you all for being here. And again, as I expressed this morning, thank you all for your service. In our closed session, we discussed a number of the questions I'd like to raise. Now, first, I think our cooperation with Ukraine is tremendously important. I'm regretful that we are, in my view, failing to provide all of the support that we should militarily. I am working hard on a Russia sanctions bill that I hope will help economically stop the flow of revenue to Putin's war machine from purchasers of Russian oil and gas. And intelligence sharing has been tremendously important to Ukraine in pushing back, and I think impressively, on Russia's assault, the false narrative that Russia is winning. I've tried to counter based on my trips to Ukraine, 10 in all, most recently in February, where I saw really the progress that Ukraine is making, contrary to some of the propaganda that Russia is spreading about how they are winning. But I'd like to ask this panel, maybe beginning with General Rudd, whether our intelligence sharing is continuing in a robust way as it has been in the past, which I think has been tremendously important, to the extent you can comment in this setting.
Thanks, Senator Blumenthal. As we discussed previously, the focus and attention on a variety of priorities and efforts remains steady. We move in an agile manner to various crisis and/or efforts, but we maintain focus and pressure on that. And so our support through European Command from an intelligence perspective in support of that effort remains intact. We're looking consistently and making sure that we have the right resources and folks focused on that, working very closely with General Grinkovich on that.
I hope that our military command will let us know if there's any change in that approach and policy, because I think that the American people deserve to know if there is a reduction or diminution in our intelligence commitment. Admiral Bradley, if you could tell us a bit about the lessons learned from Ukraine.
Senator, absolutely. First, to answer the original question and maybe bridge to that, one of the things that I think we provide through those relationships longstanding is the venue for others to partner and to bring capacity and capability. And so one of our soft headquarters there, a siege SOTF, offers the opportunity for 19 different nations to partner to come to support the effort across the area. And I think that's critical because it is not just about what we bring, but it's about enabling those partners to really share more of the burden to be able to provide assistance to the Ukrainians as well. Ultimately, though, I think to your point about lessons learned, if I look back over the last 25 years of counterterrorism targeting, where our integrated interagency, law enforcement, intel community, and military were able to bring great precision to our understanding of both the adversary, but also the context around the adversary, those civilians that were not adversaries, that has been very important. Those lessons have translated very importantly into the high-end conflict of the Ukraine battlefield. And so we continue to apply those lessons, refine them with new information, and frankly, we learn from them as well as we do impart to our teammates there.
When I've visited Ukraine, often I've gone to the drone manufacturing facilities, which have grown in sophistication and number. They're producing, I think, 1,000 drones a day now. And what has so impressed me is they work on the evolution of their drones on the assembly line. They'll get real-time information from the battlefield, and they'll make adjustments literally as they are manufacturing. And I don't know anything in our industrial base that is as nimble and agile and quick. I hope this panel agrees that we need to move more in that direction. Would you agree, Admiral?
Senator, I do, although I will say that many of our defense industrial-based partners are watching this as well. And of course, the Ukrainians are driven by the existential need for that cycle of adaptation. As we watch that, I have great confidence that our industrial base here can do the same.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Budd.
Thank you, Chairman. It's good to see each of you. Thank you all for being here. Admiral Bradley, I want to talk about SOCOM's operation and maintenance budget, if you will. So I noticed that O&M has only increased from $9.4 billion to $10